As an artist on the internet, there are many things you don't want to do, and at the top of the list, right above cropping the watermark of an art piece and saying who did this, is being a tracer. But the only thing worse than that is lying about it and even calling those dumb for even doubting your art skills. Meet Shexyo. You might say, well, these are highly detailed and well made. How can they be traced? Well, like any story of a tracer in my channel, go watch those after this one. If it was just as simple as drawing a line over another line, then perhaps a video wouldn't be needed. But so today, I'm Daftpina, and this is the story of Shexyo and how they got 100,000 followers on Twitter through stolen art. But if you want to feel like you have 100,000 followers on Twitter, you might like today's sponsor, Ridge Wallet. I've used their products for many a year, and I stand by their quality. If you or someone you know might want a gift for the holidays, and yes, you can get yourself a gift, just randomize the shipping day so you don't know when it's showing up, then this over 40,000 5-star review product can't go wrong. They also sell backpacks, chargers, and cables, so you can't go wrong there either. So check the link in the description as we dive on into who's Shexyo and who did they trace from. Shexyo, or Shexyo Art, joined the platform of Twitter in May 2020, and within 6 months gained over 123,000 followers with a low amount of actual tweets and likes. Now, they didn't get their following from actually interacting with people, as their posts just consist of the art piece and the name of the character within it, which to me, a sad existence on a Twitter platform is just running your page like a corporate business, well, with a lot less memes. But with success and a large following, surely a Patreon was in order. And yes, in October of 2020, Shexyo created a Patreon, and despite the amount earned being hidden now, last checked, they were earning over $1,000, and currently have 122 patrons. But if you go all the way back to the first post, the interesting thing about the artist is they have no previous account that we know of, and little is actually known about them. Within their Patreon, their description claims they're a regular dude who likes video games and anime, a very plain yet relatable fellow, with a personality as rich as this picture of Wonder Bread. And looking back towards the art, it is visually similar, as opposed to auditorily similar, to cute sexy robots. In fact, the way he conducts himself is so similar, you'd think they're the same person. No interaction with followers, just art posts and nothing more. For CSR, he joined the platform in October of 2017, has over 539,000 followers, and in November of 2018 created a Patreon. Not afraid the amount of moolah he makes, he has over 2,000 patrons, and earns over $10,000 per month. With success like that, it looks like Shexyo found the perfect person to copy. Well, despite never actually following CSR, and deleting comments on his other pages referencing CSR, it is clear the inspiration is not only art, but his conduct influenced Shexyo on the internet, even down to the way the Patreon is made. A thank you, high-resolution art, and even critique is shared within the tiers of each respective person. But as Shexyo gained their following, comments came up comparing their work to CSR. Are you the same person? Did CSR just make an alt account for some reason? All of this built up to Shexyo outing himself as not a tracer. So let's see how that turned out. Unprompted, as really Shexyo didn't have to say anything since CSR didn't say anything first. At 2:42 AM CST, Shexyo made a tweet longer in response to the people accusing him of tracing. Starting off, nowhere in the tweet longer does Shexyo actually say the name of the artist he traces from, as he just abbreviates them to CSR. This could have been done to make future people reading this not look up the name of the artist and just trust his word. It would have been best to say the username once, and just abbreviate the rest of the time, because typing out that long username every time, whew, my hands are tired. Next, he downplays the accusations, calling them conspiracy theories, and states that he doesn't trace. Well, let me laugh for a second. Whew, That wasn't a laugh. He then claims that sketching is his favorite part of drawing, and that tracing itself is boring. Words, words, words. I want to see what this link is. Oh, I guess it doesn't work? Hopefully nothing in there was too important. Oh, the second link is supposed to go with the first one. And I did try posting this link in both Chrome and Edge just to see if they worked. Sorry, Firefox, I forgot to install you. I guess we can't really do anything except move on. I mean, with this section right here, he says that despite the images not lining up one-to-one, he could have just repositioned things. You know, this sounds a lot like when OJ made his book, If I Did It, but for Shexyo, he'd call it If I Traced. He then shows that he never blocked anyone, which, of course, he could have just unblocked everyone, took a snapshot, then reblocked everyone. I mean, he did it to this guy right here. And goes on a spiel and says, hey, if you apply the same methods that Twitter did accusing him, it looked like CSR traced. And throughout this post, he may be wondering how any of this proves he doesn't trace. Same here. He then calls people gullible and degenerates for believing he traces, and reiterates that everything people are saying are just conspiracies. He then says not to expect another grand statement. Haha. Oh, don't forget he mentions right here that you must be very low IQ if you think he's a tracer. So let's do a quick rundown on the whole purpose of that post. Hey stupid, I don't trace. And nothing was proven. Oftentimes, if you want to prove that you can actually draw, a live stream or even showing how your work was made can help immensely. But none of that was done here. It's a lot like if you bought Krusty Burgers and claim that they're your own family recipe. One could note they are grilled and not steamed, and despite being a very delicious meal, I'm very suspicious of your methods. And what happens next is a surprise on the ages, not the Simpsons reference, but the fact that CSR responded. Posted 12:14 CST the same day as Shexyo's post. He made not a twit longer, but an old regular post. Within it, CSR shows images that look the same in terms of framing and characters. He also shows off things that are traced with overlays of the drawings, descriptions, and all the who's down in Whoville about what went on. Not much else to say, but that was a pretty good response. You know, showing what you mean. And it sounded a lot better than the first person, but really anything's better than just some person telling you, hey, dum-dum, I didn't do that stuff. Wowie zowie, 2 surprises in one day. The grand statement that Shexyo said he wouldn't do. The second time, 5:30 p.m., Shexyo smacks the low IQ people with another twit longer. He recaps everything that happened and says go read the first post to get caught up to date. Again, not saying CSR's full name, claims that all the evidence is shaky, and again, nowhere in the post does he actually show he can draw, you know, with like a sketch or a line art of his own work. All that he really says is you're stupid, and despite acknowledging he sounds condescending, doesn't do anything about it? What's worse, being terrible, or acknowledging you are terrible and not doing anything about it? The latter. Yeah, the latter. Honestly, between these 2 posts, nothing was really said, and Shexyo didn't prove he can actually draw. So let's do some digging into the deep, dark, irregular webs of the internet and see if we can find out more. I gotta change jackets. Before we talk about Shexyo once again, which, God, it feels like this video is all about him, what do you think of my coat? Do you like it? If you do, you should subscribe. But enough about my snazzy oversized coat. In Shexyo's first post, he mentions that sketching is his favorite part of drawing. Yet checking his social media pages, we see none of those sketches. Even going to his Patreon, which is a place you can follow creators like me to support me, you'd expect to see some works in progress or behind the scenes stuff regarding his art, but none of it is here. And again, not even in the posts defending himself from tracing does he show his progress. You know, for someone who likes to sketch a lot, it's pretty sketchy that we don't see any of those sketches. But you might be asking, what of CSR? Does he show his work in progresses? While checking his social media, he only posts the final version. However, I got in contact with him. I personally wanted to see how one of his highly detailed works are done, and he sent me some files. On screen right now, you can see each different file has different progress within them, and how he got there. Simple, Easy. We know how this be. And you might be saying, well, did you get in contact with Shexyo? Kind of. I contacted his Twitter account before any of these posts were made, and nothing. Since that was a dead end, I joined his Patreon, shot him a message, to see if he was willing to talk. He wasn't. He said that everything he wanted to say within the tweets already posted, which, to reiterate, called everyone dumb for thinking he traces, and proved nothing. But how could Shexyo trace these highly detailed works? Well, with no proof on how he creates them, I can speculate. It's a mix of tracing and photo bashing. Photo bashing being a way artists would blend photos, art, and 3D assets into one piece, oftentimes used as a concept for a thing you're working on, or maybe use one to have a nice art piece. This is done to make things look more realistic. A style like this is seen within the show Archer, as the backgrounds are done in 3D, then nicely painted. However, in this case, it isn't as sophisticated, as the assets don't belong to Shexyo. There are small details to see CSR's work in Shexyo's, noting the eyes in this piece, as well as a lot of broken anatomy relative to these designs. It is highly speculated that the reason why Shexyo's art looks so close to CSR's is that he actually cuts around the art piece and just photo bashes it into his own. It isn't as simple as drawing a line over a line, rather trimming around, moving things, and applying everyone's work to their own creates pieces like this where you go, huh, it's nicely detailed, but something's clearly off. But why do this? Why trace from CSR or anyone in general? For Shexyo? Money and followers? With no worry about the reputation to his real-life self, this is a pretty good burner account. We don't know his name, face, or even voice, so he is incognito in plain sight tracing and gaining a profit. Whoa, I suppose we know he likes video games and anime. So, that narrows it down. And this story of this high follower and high earner reached 4chan as a discussion piece. On the artwork side of the website, they were making fun of the fact he traces and how easy it was for him to gain a profit. Some even joked about how they can do the exact same thing with no repercussion and make some money on the side. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is this comment right here. They claim that CSRB can't do anything, as these characters are not his IP, and that he'll just keep tracing. Of course, this comment could be anyone, but to me does share some of the same attitude we saw with his posts. But it does make you think though. These characters are owned by another company and not by these two people. CSR can't get that mad. Well, yes and no. Save for the song Rhapsody in Blue, which is currently in the public domain, gets covered by a band. They don't own the copyright for the song itself, however, they own that rendition of the piece. The way the instruments are played, every mistake or perfection is theirs, unless that rendition gets into public domain. But moving on. If you use their version of the song within the film without purchasing licensing rights, then despite being a public domain song, you can get into some legal trouble. But you're shouting in the comment section with all caps, these characters aren't public domain, yes, but they fall under a similar category. Rendition. For example, MatPat of Game Theory got into hot water with his audience as he used fan art of a game within his video, thinking it was from an actual game. Although it isn't the artist's IP that he stole from, they created that work and MatPat earned a profit from their work. If it wasn't a big deal, then Matt wouldn't have actually addressed it in the video and apologized to those people. Of course, this isn't saying that the fan artists wouldn't necessarily take MatPat to court. Rather, there's still a case of repercussions, even if less financial and more social, such as Shexyo tracing CSR's work of an actual property, Shexyo is still stealing from CSR. But going back to the comment, if it is to be believed that this is Shexyo, then it's a bit odd to be proud of the fact you can't draw and are stealing from someone else. On a short note, there was another thread which has an OP describing they got caught tracing and asked for help on what to do next. And immediately the comments thought it was Shexyo, making fun of him. Now you might ask what the point of this video was. I showed off an artist who gained a large following from tracing, and of whom managed to earn a bit of a dollar with no real repercussions to their personal life. Well, there are a few things about that. Socially, he has no one to be there for him or to help defend his actions, be it because he outright traces or the way he addresses controversy of his actions. His peers won't be there for him. And what do you say, prominent people in the community?
Oof, yeah, not a good look.
Very sus. Gods are my friends.
Shexyo is a good artist. I really wish he didn't trace.
Job-wise in the professional industry, since he traces, and may be terrible to work with based on his posts, he can't work in the industry as those who would hire him can easily see how he acts online. Lastly, now that everyone knows he steals the hard work from others, it's only a matter of time before he eventually stops posting, either from the constant barrage of comments proving he traces in each post, or maybe when he stops earning a profit from Patreon. No one to be there, no future, and only a present littered with tracing. Is this how Shexyo wants to be known for? I suppose we'll never truly know. In the end, this could have been avoided if he just drew things himself. And hey, subscribe if you liked the video, join my Patreon to support my works, and be sure to check out my cartoon releasing November 30th on my second channel. But for now, please don't forget to have